Okay, hello everyone, welcome back to CM42 TV. Today we are going to talk about one of, if not the most discussed, debated and downright confusing movies of all time. I'm going to attempt to anyway. 2001 A Space Odyssey. The 50th anniversary edition, because it was screened around the country, around the country this past week as we're approaching the 50th anniversary. Since 1968 was its release year. 2001 A Space Odyssey goes down as one of the most, noteworthy, important sci-fi films of all time, and it is like, to me anyway, like a sort of new generation sort of child and young man. Obviously this is well before my time, but as you know, I've been growing up and being surrounded by films and studying films and stuff like that. You always hear 2001 A Space Odyssey being one of the most confusing films of all time, and does that put you off watching it? I can tell you personally, 100% does. I have never, had the desire to sit down, put on 2001 A Space Odyssey. I had no desire to buy it on Blu-ray or DVD or anything like that. Anytime I see reviews about it, I always, either skip them or I'll just hear a snippet from it saying this ending is fucking confusing. So it's one of those ones, and then of course you see the runtime being 2.5 hours. It's a Stanley Kubrick film, so it's going to be weird anyway. You don't want to sort of mess with your mind just by watching a film. So it's one of those ones where, you have to be in the mood, it has to be right, the circumstances must be correct and in order to fully enjoy this film, especially now in 2018. And now that we are in 2018, it's 50 years since the 50 years since the release date. It's a crazy journey we've all been on, and it's a crazy journey that they go on, because I don't want to try and explain the film or anything. I want to talk about the experience of me going to the cinema and watching this film. Because of the 50th anniversary, they've been screening the film over, around the country or whatever. I'm sure they do it, around the UK and maybe even around the world, I don't know. But I was there, Cineworld, 7:45 last night, witnessing 2001 A Space Odyssey for the first time. And I was really excited actually, because I always go on about how I wish Cineworld and cinemas around the country would show classic films. I would love to go see my favourite films on the big screen with everybody, with a great sound, and on the big screen and with popcorn and a tank of ice blast and things like that. It just adds to the experience. That's why I love going to the cinema, and it's become a hobby of mine. I go every week and stuff, and I get to see all these films. I get to see some of the bigger ones like Solo and Deadpool 2 and Avengers. But then also this year I've seen great films such as Phantom Thread, Tully, a few others of course on that list as well. But so this was another one. I've got the app. I'm always looking what's on and stuff, and we were seeing I think it was Deadpool 2. The trailers before Deadpool 2, 2001 A Space Odyssey was shown as a trailer, and I was like, oh, they must be, releasing a new Blu-ray edition or whatever. But no, it says in cinemas this June or whatever. And I was like, that'd be a good one to go see in the cinema, because, it's visually stunning and stuff. You hear at least, that it's visually stunning. And you can imagine from the title and the reputation and the genre even, that it would be amazing to see. Obviously Kubrick, I'd argue that Kubrick's most famous and well-known film is The Shining. So, I watched that for the first time last October. I posted a video about that recently, like a flashback video of that clip of me reviewing that film, which is quite funny if you want to check that out in the flashback videos playlist. But I'd be happy to see The Shining on the big screen, believe it or not, since I've got over that hurdle of watching it for the first time and being totally creeped out. So when I got the opportunity to see 2001 at the cinema, I was thinking, let's do it, this is going to be the time. I'm never going to watch it in the house. This is the way to experience it with these fans of the film, people who know the film, or people like me who have never seen the film. And you just know it's going to be a visually stunning film, you know it's going to be a great experience. So we did it last night, and all the rumours of this being the most confusing film of all time is kind of true. However, it was by nowhere near as confusing as I thought it was going to be. Like start to finish, you have no idea what's going on. Because I've read reports and stuff like film critics back in 1968 walking out of the cinema going, someone tell me what this film is about. I was kind of going in thinking, I'm not going to understand a thing. I'm not going to know who the characters are. I'm sure there's going to be loads of them with fancy names because they're in space. And I was just thinking this is going to be ridiculous. I didn't expect the first half an hour to be the dawn of man scene, with all the monkeys and the apes and which I loved, by the way, and I loved the music, and I loved the way that they depicted the dawn of man, and they showed that this is what life was like before we were over here. You never get to see that. You see it in some films and stuff, but you don't see it being done right. And over the years watching Star Wars films and Star Wars documentaries, you always hear about the first time anybody ever saw space in cinemas was 2001: A Space Odyssey. So I was thinking, okay, we're going to be seeing some lovely transitions from the olden days when there was no people all the way up to the space time, and it was literally like between a second. And I guess that's one of the more well-known montage clips ever, when the monkey throws the bone in the air and it turns into the space shuttle thing, which was a beautiful thing. And of course the music, Ric Flair's theme song, as I know it from. And this is just one of the greatest scores ever. The music just gives you chills and gave me goosebumps sitting in that cinema. And that's exactly the reason why I was there. I was thinking that, maybe I won't understand this film, maybe I will get bored and it might be a bit dated, but this music and the visuals that you're seeing giving me goosebumps everywhere, and that's exactly why I was there, and that's why I wanted to go see it at the cinema. I loved the opening, the dawn of man scene stuff. That was great to see. And then it cuts straight to the space stuff and the guy going to the moon. And I don't know if I have to spoil, so give me a spoiler warning or whatever, but it was 50 years ago. The guy and his crew arrive on the moon. They see the black thing, the black rectangle thing, right? I don't know what to call it. That apparently, I've done some research, I looked up, because of course anybody who watches this film, you're a liar if you don't do this. You go home and you type in 2001: A Space Odyssey explained, or review, or try and get some sort of sense, listen to other people's opinions and try and form your own opinions, I'd done that when I came in last night. And one of the things I saw which was really interesting is that, maybe Kubrick said this himself, I think, that the black the black statue thing, whatever it's called, the palette thing, is meant to depict God. And how it's like a sort of alien version of God, that everyone thinks God is this magical creature that is all good and stuff, where here's another idea of what God could have been: an alien from another planet coming to warn people, It's there, it just shows up randomly with the apes back at the dawn of man. It's there on the moon in this dugout thing that's been buried for years, that apparently that was what the apes were doing, but it clearly wasn't because it's on the moon. Sends out this signal to Jupiter, Drake and Josh reference, and then later on, Dave and Hal and his pal, I can't remember his name, they're travelling to Jupiter, and Hal totally heel turns on them, totally unexpected. I love it. Hal's voice sounded like Kevin Spacey in Seven, which is rather awkward, but it did. I don't think you should do that, Dave. You're looking for me, detective? There you go, there's the mix. Sort of my Kevin Spacey impression. That was great. I didn't expect the heel turn of Hal, and then it just, just goes tits up. Total confusion. Then another thing I want to talk about is, because I didn't know this was going to happen, halfway through the film, the two space guys, Dave and his pal, are in the sort of shuttle, and they've shut off Hal, so Hal can't hear what they're saying. And then you get the shot of Hal looking at their lips moving, so he does know what they're saying because he can read lips. And then the picture faded out, and it came up saying intermission, and the lights came back on. There was a fucking interval at the cinema. Now, I'm an actor, I'm a theatre person, I go to the theatre rather often, not as often as I should, but I do go to the theatre. And there's, obviously intermissions there. I've been in shows very recently where there's, a nice 15-20 minute interval. In a play, or a musical, or a theatre show, but I've never experienced it in the cinema. It was totally bizarre. It's not as if the film is like 4 hours long where you need one. I think it totally interrupted the flow. I didn't enjoy the fact there was an intermission there, because I was well into it. I was like, oh, how can read the lips? It's super advanced, it can read lips, it doesn't need to hear them to understand, and he's going to turn, he knows they're plotting to turn them off. Intermission, you're taken out of it, and you have to kind of remember what happens 20 minutes later. But it was fine. I went to the toilet, I checked my phone, had a breather, it was fine, but it just was totally unnecessary. And I know that happened back in the day, in the 60s, the 70s and the 80s, where, and earlier, that these intermissions would happen and stuff, but no one needs them anymore. We can go see the Avengers for 2.5 hours with no intermission. It's fine, I was a bit disappointed with that, but overall I loved the experience. I loved the film. It was very confusing, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's quite good to have your own opinions and try and form some sort of sense. It's really difficult though, because this is one of the most bizarre films of all time. I love the opening. I love the Hal heel turn sequence thing. Obviously, it's a Kubrick film, so it's really weird, and everything's taking their time and stuff, like The Shining, like the little boy going through the hotel in his wee bike, like that's suspense, and it's tension, it's building the tension. It takes ages to get to where they want to go. It's here as well. It's not scary, but it still takes ages to do things because you're building that suspense and stuff. And then the heel turn of Hal, shoving the guy off the planet and whatever. It's nice that it can afford to take that time. It's 2.5 hours, and we're going to use it, you know. So even the opening sequence with the Donna Man and the apes and stuff is ages, you know. And then of course the ending, when Dave kind of sees him, travels through time, sees an older version of himself, but then isn't really there, you know, and knocks over the glass of wine, which kind of symbolises him breaking down. He looks over to the bed and he's a dying man who sees the godlike black statue thing. It's a really, really weird ending. It's a really weird film, but that's Kubrick. That's 2001: A Space Odyssey. That's what it is, and that's what it's known for. And it's, you know, there are reports for years saying, if you fully understand this film, if you walk out the cinema totally satisfied with the ending, they failed at their job, because they want to spark emotion, they want to spark thought and opinion and stuff. So, you know, I loved it. I loved the experience. I will not be watching it anytime soon again. However, it is one to kind of document and say I saw it in the cinema, and I'm proud to say I saw it in the cinema, you know. So there you go. That's my 2001: A Space Odyssey. I got the IMDb page up here. I didn't even need it. What's his name? Dave Frank. That was it. Gary Lockwood played Frank. There was Dr. Floyd. William Sylvester was there. Who was Hal? Hal was Douglas Rain, not Kevin Spacey. So there you go. Totally bizarre. Fantastic film. Recommended, I suppose, if you want to do some thinking. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, everybody. Subscribe if you want to, subscribe. Just do it, because you know why. Leave a comment, like the video, share it with a friend, do whatever you want to do. Support the podcast on iTunes, The Good, The Bit Podcast, and on Podomatic.com. Follow me on Twitter, at CM42TV. Until next time, folks, thank you very much for watching. It has been a joy talking to you all.